Public corporations are often under pressure to merge to cope with rapidly changing circumstances when they face financial stresses, managerial inefficiency, and market instability, particularly due to overlapping functions with other public corporations or growing competition from private businesses. However, the merger of public corporations is not simple, but often politically challenging because of political and managerial obstacles and conflicts among stakeholders. By examining the merger of the Korea Land Corporation, or KLC, and the Korea Housing Corporation, or KHC, into the Korean Land and Housing Corporation, or LH, in 2009, this case aims to investigate the role of leadership taken by Lee Ji-sung, who was the first CEO of the merged corporation, as well as various managerial challenges faced in the course of post-merger integration. This case investigates how political factors affect the initiation and implementation of a public corporation merger, as well as what roles executive leadership can play in managing pre-merger challenges and post-merger integration in a politically and managerially turbulent environment. The Korea Housing Corporation, or KHC, was formally launched in 1962, modeled on the Joseon Housing Headquarters, which played major roles in rebuilding war-torn houses and influencing housing policies by initiating housing zones as well as constructing and remodeling housing for domestic citizens and foreigners. The Korea Land Corporation, or KLC, was established in 1975, aimed at developing and providing large-scale lands for housing at stable prices. It was also increasingly active in urban redevelopment projects, new city development projects, and large-scale national industrial complex developments between 1988 and 1997. Though there was a distinctive divided role between KHC and KLC when they were established, there were more functional overlaps between them in the course of expanding their functional roles. For example, KHC began to construct many apartments and houses on the land owned by the corporation, while KLC supplied housing land to private developers in the 1980s. With increasing concerns about overlapped functions of KLC and KHC and high-rocketing financial stress, the idea of merging the two public corporations began to be seriously considered by the Korean government since 1993. After 16 years, however, the Korea Land and Housing Corporation was finally established in 2009 because the merger option was often blocked by various stakeholders, including labor unions, local governments, and politicians. Upon his presidential inauguration, President Lee Myung initiated Public Entities Modernization Initiative. The merger of KLC and KHC was presented as an exemplary case for the enhancement of managerial efficiency and financial health of two related and often competing public corporations by eliminating overlapped functions and maximizing a synergic effect of land policies and housing policies. The Modernization of Public Entities initiative of the Lee administration was not promoted strongly later because the public approval rate of the administration dropped substantially in 2008 when President Lee was faced with large-scale public protest against the administration's position about importing American beef in the middle of growing public concerns about possible bovine spongiform encephalopathy, popularly known as mad cow disease. Despite weakening the Modernization of Public Entities initiative, the merger of KLC and KHC was eventually realized, partially because it was initiated at the early part of the administration, when strong government initiative and the interest of political leadership, public demand for efficient public corporations, and a positive political environment were concerted. Lee Ji-sung was appointed as the first CEO of LH in 2009, with long-term relationship with President Lee that began at the Hyundai Construction Company as one of the reasons cited. He had great political capital with full support from President Lee. When he worked at the Hyundai Construction Company, he helped the Cheonggyecheon restoration project of the Seoul Metropolitan Government, a landmark project for Mayor Lee Myung-bak, which later became a stepping stone for his presidential race. The personal trust-based relationship between President Lee Myung-bak and CEO Lee Ji-sung was part of the great political capital of CEO Lee. He took advantage of his political capital in implementing aggressive managerial and business measures to improve both organizational and financial stability of LH. He also tried to shape up favorable conditions despite significant opposition from various internal and external stakeholders, including many local governments and lawmakers, who expressed fierce opposition to CEO Lee's idea to scale back some development projects which directly affected the districts of their political interests. CEO Lee also actively approached the National Assembly for financial support for its development projects to prevent financial aggravation. In fact, it was known that LH incurred a financial debt burden of about $800,000 per unit construction of public housing due to the difference between the construction cost and the selling price. In order to acquire political support from lawmakers of the ruling party, CEO Lee explained policy measures to improve LH's fiscal condition. For example, he made a proposal to increase government's financial support for public housing, as well as the unit expense for public housing per 3.3 square meters, from $4,500 to $6,000, to improve the fiscal condition of LH. The 2008 financial crisis and poor financial condition of public corporations also helped CEO Lee to solidify his political capital for the Public Entities Modernization Initiative. In fact, the public became receptive to the merger option when they learned the LH's poor financial situation with a debt of about $100 billion and daily interest payments of $10 million. He also attempted to strategically draw attention to negative and critical public perceptions of LH, as well as the urgency of managerial and financial reforms to stabilize the newly merged organization. As soon as CEO Lee took the leadership in the merger process, he began to work with the Merger Preparation Headquarters, which was composed of the representatives of the two public corporations. The headquarters was responsible for conducting major human resource reforms and introducing organizational changes, along with a new vision and strategy. The merger preparation period for the LH was very short and extremely intense. The 1-month preparation time allotment was unusually short, considering it usually takes a year for the average merger preparation period. Lee Ji-sung, as the incoming CEO, tried to meet all the stakeholders, including the KLC and KHC leadership, as well as the branch office leaders of both public corporations, in order to grasp full understanding significant issues and obstacles that he should deal with. He also emphasized the preparation of a vision and strategy for the merged public corporation that he believed was a great tool to unite the two public corporations and motivate employees in the course of managing various challenges, such as organizational and human resource changes, fiscal health improvement, business process changes, establishment of conflict resolution programs, and changes in the internal rules. At the beginning, he clearly pronounced a no-layoff policy, which was a great relief to many employees who were concerned about losing jobs. He also took necessary proactive steps to improve the fiscal condition of the new public corporation. He also emphasized that merger and reform was not an option, but a public initiative and requirement to overcome the crisis that the LH faced. His no-layoff policy helped him build internal support for his leadership as an agent of change. This also helped to build internal support for his aggressive fiscal measures in lieu of growing consensus on the sense of urgency. With the launch of the LH, CEO Lee made significant efforts to promote an organic merger rather than a simple physical and superficial merger. He prepared a basic plan for the LH post-merger integration program after the launch of the organization, and then proclaimed the new vision in the following month through an employee preference survey for the merger brand, a new vision campaign, action plans, and agreement on the merger. With a shared sense of urgency among organizational members, he could obtain increased internal support from employees for his reform initiative because many employees understood the need for inevitable reforms for survival. Employees even voluntarily participated in contributing 10% of their own salaries to the public corporation to improve financial conditions. It was imperative to build trust and a sense of unity between employees from two different former organizations. It was one of the major challenges for CEO Lee, who wished to make a harmonious relationship among the employees of the former KLC and KHC. He paid attention to the fact that former employees of KLC and KHC had somewhat different interests and great concerns over the merger. Paying attention to the potential tension between KLC and KHC employees, he introduced a transparent and balanced personnel policy by preventing any discriminatory personnel decisions and promoting objective merit-based personnel system based on objective performance information. He changed the positions of 483 high-ranking officials, or about 24% of the total employees. He also challenged the long-standing seniority-based personnel system through the appointment of young, capable employees and competent female employees to critical positions, which helped cultivate a performance-oriented culture. Upon the launch of the LH, CEO Lee clarified that the compelling reason for the merger was to enhance managerial efficiency, as well as reduce any redundant functions in the two public corporations. One of his first actions was to manage a growing debt that jumped from $100 billion in October 2009 to about $110 billion at the end of 2010. Out of a total debt of $110 billion, the financial debt borrowed from financial institutions was about $83 billion. Under CEO Lee's leadership, LH took aggressive debt reduction initiatives by selling real estate holdings, as well as scaling down, canceling, or prioritizing some construction projects based on project evaluations. In the first quarter of 2012, by selling housing and land assets worth $3 billion, LH paid back about $7 billion.
The purpose of the merger between KLC and KHC were to reduce redundant functions and increase managerial efficiencies. The merger resulted in the establishment of LH, which is one of the largest public corporations in Asia. There had been several attempts to initiate the merger since 1993, but it was only implemented in 2009. This indicates the degree of difficulty in initiating and realizing the merger, which is often required to go through political and managerial obstacles. This case study particularly highlights critical factors which led to the effective merger of two large public corporations. They include favorable political environment such as political interest and strong agenda setting by the top political leader like a president, as well as strong public support for the merger. This case also suggests the significance of executive leadership, which plays a critical role in building both external and internal support in the course of merging two public corporations, as well as managing post-merger integrations.
In the establishment of LH, President Lee Myung-bak's initiative for public entities modernization formed favorable political environment for the merger option to improve managerial efficiency, as well as the fiscal health of public corporations. Also, growing public concerns about the continued deterioration of the financial status of public corporations also contributed to shaping up the favorable political environment, Along with his political capital from his personal trust-based relationship with the president, Lee Ji-sung's leadership as the first CEO of LH and managerial capacity in handling post-merger integration were also critical to the effective merger of two large public corporations. It is noteworthy that he took advantage of his political capital in a shrewd and strategic way by overcoming several political and managerial challenges. His management skills and expertise in the construction field were also instrumental in streamlining various development projects after the merger of KLC and KHC. It should be noted that the merger itself does not necessarily guarantee attainment of intended outcomes. Post-merger management is required to solve problems such as confirming new goals, reconciling heterogeneous managerial principles, establishing impartial human management systems, and creating new organizational cultures. It is not enough to emphasize the significance of leadership in the course of merging two public corporations. In addition to his political capital, CEO Lee's strong commitment and vision for the new organization were critical to the effective PMI. CEO Lee introduced several measures to create a new organizational culture. LH was committed to impartial personnel management through conflict resolution programs, which featured the same number of employees from KHC and KLC. In particular, dismissing the radical layoff policy was important in building trust with employees.